All right, that's the craziness they are trying to avoid tonight. But the Reverend Jesse Jackson stopped by and chatted with me at Fox Business to say it is justified. Let's just say it got heated. When people, instead of exercising right to freely protest, are looting stores and stealing things, there were dozens of cases of that last night. Is that right?
No, but one of the biggest looter last week was the bank. That had the 5,300 people. Well, not a big looting.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Well, I know you're not talking about that, but that's looting.
Some take it too far. Is that right?
Well, is the banks taking that too far? No one has been indicted.
Well, believe me, they're going into that. I'm going to deal with it.
Well,
let me ask you this. Don't switch subjects, Reverend.
But no,
I respect you. I'm just saying to you, do you find that what happened last night got out of control when so many started attacking structures, attacking police vehicles, breaking into stores, many of them black-owned businesses? Is that fair?
Well, it's not fun. Let me put it this way. When people, Dr. King said riots are the voices of the unheard. And when you get that balance-shaped mark insufficient funds and never get justice and fairness, you have these rebellions. And then you're looking at a rebellion, and that needs to be, we need to address the source of the rebellion, not just the actions.
But I think, in all respect, Reverend, you are really making a slap at all poor African Americans who don't do this, who don't respond like this. And
people are responding in very different ways. For some people, it's
but you're saying that because you're poor, you're disadvantaged, or the white man has somehow deliberately disadvantaged you, you do this sort of thing, when in other locales you don't do that. So that's paying them no heed.
The reason why I say it's not just race, I don't know if it was black, white in Sandy Hook. In Orlando, for example, we've become much too violent as a society. We've become much too violent, period. But then there are layers of, there's intra-violent related between white on white, black on black, brown on brown. But then when the police literally, and the camera becomes the conduit of justice, shoot some of their hands up in the air, again, that's wrong. And those who do it should face the full weight of quick justice.
But you seem to be saying that all 680 cases that we've seen in the past year and a half where blacks were shot by police were all that way. Were there not some that were legitimate, where a gun was involved? In the case of Keith Lamont Scott.
Well, shooting people in the back is not legitimate. And the case
did that happen? Careful, because you always say don't generalize. If that happened 680 times, you are absolutely right. It did not. But let me ask you, in the case of Keith Lamont Scott, if he had a gun, and you're quite right, we don't know for sure. North Carolina is an open carry state that allows it. Are you saying that people shouldn't be carrying guns around in that case? It's only a provocative
action? Of course, there's easy access to guns. I think we should ban assault weapons, which have background checks. Open and carry guns is very risky and very, very dangerous and very wrong, I would say. But when you look at it, Walter Scott shot 6 times, and the police lied. Those with him lied, and you come right back. Eric Garner choked to death, and the police looked on and lied.
Do you think that's common practice?
Well, we see it one way every day.
Well, we also see a lot of cops getting shot. Do you have the same rage about that?
You don't see a lot of cops getting shot, but they shouldn't get shot. But I submit to you that let's go a step further. We need to review the Kerner Commission report on the alienation and suppression is running its toll on people.
But you see what I'm saying, though, You're upset when people are shot in these instances that you mentioned, but you aren't when it happens to a cop.
It's not true. As a matter of fact,
have you had protests and rallies when it's happened to cops?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, unless you ban assault weapons, you can't protect those who for
But that's not what I asked. You have the same rage when it involves a cop, white or black.
Immediately in Baton Rouge, we responded when that took place. But we also know that they tried to associate the killing in Baton Rouge and Dallas with Black Lives Matter. The fact is, these were military people trained who saw an injustice, and they felt their resolution was what they've been trained to do, which was to shoot, which we didn't agree with. But let's go a step. Let's move toward the remedy and analysis here. At some point in time, this gap. And this had a big lawsuit in North Carolina where officials intentionally tried to disenfranchise black voters, and they lost the lawsuit. That's kind of high-tech stuff.
They didn't try to disenfranchise.
No. That's what the lawsuit says, and it said it was precise. in the attempt to disenfranchise black voters.
Well, I mean, you look at it with the racial way. You're going to say if you're going to vote, should you show something to prove you are, white or black?
No, the law said there was voter ID. There are many forms.
I don't want to go into that. I think we're getting a deal.
You don't have to go into it, but the point is, if banks are overcharging people, and that's looting, blue-collar looting, and if people are trying to take your vote,
I think you're conflating extremes. I do want to ask you this.
I can only speak from this side.
I'm agreeing with you there.
If I'm on this side of the table, are you over there? And I look at the banks looting on the one hand.
So you feel that other looting is justified to respond to that?
It's all this part of the general climate. Banks are looting and lying.
You can't possibly believe
Banks
that.
looting and lying.
You're a man of God. You can't possibly believe that.
Can't believe what?
You are justifying, well, the banks are looting us, so you have a right to loot in response.
I'm saying there's a climate and environment.
So then what do you think of what happened at Tulsa, where there was a clear case where it seemed the guy put up his hands, he was still shot, been no riots, no problems in Tulsa thus far, yet in Charlotte, this is going crazy.
Well, the difference there may be they became very public with the tapes in Tulsa, and there's a cover-up in Charlotte, and there's not enough confidence in the police officials.
But what if they're showing the victim's family the tape, and the tape shows that he might have had a gun? Just hypothetical.
They've not shown it yet, and the fact
but
is...
But if they did,
if
they did.
That's hypothetical. All we know
just said something hypothetical.
All we know, he is dead, and he had the right to have an arm given the laws of that state, and so forth to cover up. So cover-up amounts to an attempt to circumvent law, justice, and fairness.
You don't know of a cover-up. They want to get the tape to the family before they show anyone else, because the family has a right to see it first.
They've not gotten to the family yet either.
So by the end of today, they're supposed to have it. Are you saying if the family comes out...
How many days later?
Reverend,
how many days later?
If the family comes out and says, we've seen the tape, we urge peace, what would you say?
I would urge peace, too. But peace is the presence...
But you're not. You're justifying what they did last night.
Peace is the presence of justice. Quietness is the absence of noise. There are many people who are quiet.
So if they're quiet in Tulsa, what's wrong with being quiet in Tulsa? They're taking all this in. They're not doing what they did in Charlotte.
Different people have tolerance levels, and I submit to you that there is and the cumulative effect here, it is the Charleston 9. I saw Trump the other day say, well, why should we give this a guy that set the bombs off, why should we give him all this nice treatment as a Muslim? But the guy who killed the Charleston 9, he got due process. That's the American way. The guy who blew up the bomb in Oklahoma City, he got due process. And so we shouldn't suspend due process.
Would you arrest, Reverend, those who got so violent that they set fire to vehicles, they set fire to retail establishments, they broke in and looted those establishments? Would you say you are disgracing the message of Dr. King, and I will not support that behavior?
Well, you disgrace the message of Dr. King when you don't do justice and love mercy. I mean, don't pull Dr. King, make him a cover up.
That's not what I asked.
Would you
say that? No, you went one step too far there.
But Dr. King, looking at the riot in L.A., said when he hits that point, it's extreme. He said the voices of the unheard. That's people lose it at some point in time. People can.
So you condone their losing and justify what they did.
Can you imagine for a moment if we had this many black police shooting white folk in the back? What would your response be?
No. It would be the same.
No, you're not telling
me. You know what? Reverend, you're not telling the truth.
This many black police shooting white folk in the back.
You are an apostle of Martin Luther King,
and Jesus Christ, I understand all of that.
Who advocated peaceful protests. You are justifying what happened last night. When a lot of those people went way beyond.
I still advocate peaceful protests. You didn't quite answer my question. Say, if this many whites have been shot by blacks in the back, what would be the response?
I wouldn't break into Macy's. I wouldn't break into any store. I would peacefully protest my rage, as is my right as an American, as is your right as an American. But you are being very colorblind about it, right? You are taking the side.
You think everybody would take a pattern of white, as opposed to calling it retribution and why would blacks shoot whites? You think it would be as peaceful as you are?
If I generalized about races the way you just did about these incidents with police shootings, you would be all over me.
This is not generalization. This is specific. Walter Scott is specific.
You're saying all 680 cases of these shootings were that way. You're saying, without even acknowledging all the violence of black-on-black crime in Chicago, and saying it's no big deal.
Well,
I'm not going to pay attention to that.
Well, in Chicago, you have 3,000 shot. You have 500 killings.
And what have you said?
an awful lot and preached a lot of the funerals in this source of pain.
But where's the rage over that?
Well, the rage has been expressed. One rage was expressed when they covered up the killing of a kid, LaGuan McDonald's, 14 months. And people responded by voting the states to turn out. They responded with very ordered, disciplined political process. So some people may respond and some may not respond.
So you'll be a fair and balanced critic to needless violence, no matter where it is?
Of course we are.
Okay. Reverend, thank you very, very
Before
much.
I get my response, if you had this many white people being shot by black police, what do you think the response would be?
The same, but peaceful.
Right.